If you feel like you're in a deal drought and you're itching to settle on a little less favorable deal, this is the episode for you.
Hey, Elizabeth.
Hey, Adam.
Should you force a deal to work?
Well, a little rhetorical there, but
Yeah.
I think this happens often in the investor world. Experienced investors, newbie investors, they get so excited, which I appreciate the excitement. I even personally get excited when we land a deal. We walked a property yesterday, so I can speak to the excitement that I felt walking the property and thinking that we were getting closer to something. But you don't. You don't force a deal to work. A deal works or it doesn't. And I would say it's close to being black and white in our world. Especially the great thing is a lender is going to protect you in a lot of aspects to make sure that you don't get into a deal that doesn't make sense. But we also don't know that we want to be the bad guy every time. So let's figure out how we analyze a deal up front so we're not forcing deals that don't make sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I think, to a certain extent, on the flipping side, depending on how extensive the rehab is, 70% after repaired values where people need to be sitting. Because otherwise, I mean, gosh, you're only probably making maybe 10% of the after repaired value. So let's make this super simple. 100K after repaired value. Let's say you buy it for 40K, you put 35K into it. So you're all in at 75.
Okay.
Which is, I would say, some other lenders' parameters. 75% of ARV is I would say the max we're typically going to see lending wise. Mm-hmm. From there, you still got seller fees of, I always do the math at 10%. That's probably a little bit of an overage. But if you have realtors on both sides, you got 3% on each. So that's 6. Then you got some title fees and whatnot. So, okay, now 75. Now we're at 85. You got some holding costs. That puts you at 90. Now you're making, I don't know, maybe 10 grand on a deal.
Then you got to take capital gains out of that.
So is that the deal for you? If it's quick and dirty, maybe. But again, that's still probably going to take you 90 days to do. So I'm cautious of let's not jump into deals that don't make sense. Let's not jump into deals and force something to work just because you want to land one, just because you want to have the experience. Because we want these experiences to be good for you. We want you to do this deal and 100 more if you want to. But if you do this first or second or 15th deal wrong, a bad deal leaves a bad taste in your mouth immediately.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about symptoms of the fever. The fever. So, don't give in to the fever. You got to do your due diligence, do your underwriting, be the underwriter. Think of this think like the bank. That's, Liz's favorite phrase.
Taking my phrase.
Yeah. Think like the bank. Would the bank do this? If the bank wouldn't do the deal, why should you do the deal?
Yeah. And the great thing is, again, the lenders have their parameters. So I always say, get with your realtor, analyze the deal. You and them will determine if this is even something you should bring to me, honestly. That should be your step one. Then you bring it to me and I'll put my eyes on it. The great thing is I feel like anytime you or I get a deal, we look at it as if we're taking it down.
Yeah.
And if I wouldn't take it down, I'm going to let you know, what am I not seeing here?
Yeah.
And there is a chance that there's something above and beyond the numbers. So if it was a burr, so again, we were talking about a flip where, okay, at the end of the day, you're going to make X amount of dollars. Now, if this was a burr and the numbers seemed a little thin, I'm going to ask questions, but maybe this property's a cash cow. Maybe it's in a highly appreciating area. Maybe, I don't know, there could be or Airbnb.
Yeah.
Maybe there's another story here that I can't see by the numbers. Because again, we're numbers people. I look at those and they say yes or no, very quick and easy. And so in those scenarios, there could be another story to happen or to play out. But otherwise, slow down. Because honestly, okay, great, your realtor says this is great and dandy. I take a look at it and I'm like, I'm not really seeing it. But if you feel very confident, let's keep going. The lender's going to give their last and final stamp of approval or not. And that's the big thing to understand. Do you feel like the fever is taking over a little? That people are making rash decisions and forcing deals?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's been an issue, I would say, since the mid-teens. So the last 7 or 8 years, you've had that kind of issue. A lot of it was driven by very low interest rates, so you could get money for next to nothing. Nowadays, I think because we have such a housing shortage, and you still have so little inventory, people see big numbers for houses that went for $200,000 3 years ago are now going for $400,000, and they're just thinking, how can I cash in?
Yeah. And to a certain extent, we understand that, and everyone wants a piece of the pie. Just slow down.
Yeah.
It's not Monopoly.
It's not Monopoly.
I can very much say from experience, even for myself and watching clients play out, like it can start to feel like Monopoly, that you can just play around with hard money and not go through income validation and, be looking at deals here, there, and everywhere. But we're making life decisions here. This is not Monopoly. There's risk here. This is why not everybody does this. There is a level of risk that you need to kind of put a pulse on and say, is this something that is for me and my family or not? But these decisions can have repercussions if you're not putting, guidelines in place for yourself. And again, the guidelines for you and the guidelines for me could be completely different. I know that I've taken on deals that you're like, Liz, what the heck are you doing? What are you doing? But I mean, again, that risk tolerance is something I think we try to have initial conversations about, like, what kind of risk are you? Like, are you a risky person? Like, do you feel comfortable in this space? And as we go through deals, you can really kind of figure that out very quickly you thought you were a risky person, but then I presented these terms to you and you were very cautious and whatnot, which I appreciate and I want to know about. But it's really just like figuring those moving parts out well before getting in knee deep in a deal. So is there ways that you think that we can protect our clients from getting too deep into transactions that they shouldn't be in?
Sure. I mean, I think just the underwriting process is a protective measure. So some people get down on underwriters and get down on lenders because, they won't let me do the thing that I wanted to do. Well, okay, but the thing that you wanted to do would have resulted in you, probably losing money.
Yeah.
And why is that? Because you're looking at it through rose-colored glasses. You have this rosy vision of what it is, of what it could be, and you're hoping and you're wanting, and you're not looking at the numbers. I mean, I was looking at a deal just recently, and the guy said, "Hey, yeah, this is going to be valued at $400,000." And I said, "Cool, give me the comps." So he sends me the comps, and not a single one of them was at $400,000. So I said, "How is this going to be $400,000?" He said, "Well, my finishes are going to be nicer." Bro, that's not. Finishes are not going to take you from 250 to 400 or I mean, it's just not going to happen.
Don't be ambitious.
I mean, when you look at a deal through rose-colored glasses, you miss all the red flags.
Yeah.
So, I mean, go with your gut, not just with your gut, but really try not to give into the fever. Assume that you have the fever and then fight against that. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the red flags come up, and I think there's a lot of investors that are like, meh,
yeah.
I don't want to see it.
Yeah.
I don't want to acknowledge that because I want the deal so bad. And I get it, but at the same time, these are like moments where you can get out of a deal right in that moment. Like appraisal comes in short. Get out.
Yeah.
Your contractor walks the property and all of a sudden your budget went up 10, 15, 20% of what you initially had. Get out.
Yeah.
Like so the deal yesterday, I walked it, seemed fine. I actually made an offer without having my contractor walk it, which is not typically what I do. A little danger.
You feeling a little warm there, Liz?
I may have the fever. But I made the offer so aggressive that like I had room.
Yeah.
Like there could have been something that came up. Little did I know. So the wholesaler calls me and he's like, I have a couple offers that are higher, but they want their contractors to walk. Do you also want your contractor to walk to see if you can inch up your price that you offered us? And I was like, if we have time, because it was a rush. Of course.
It's always a rush. Yeah.
So I had to be in by noon and I had to give him a number. So I gave him a number that I felt comfortable with. And he's like, well, everyone's going to have their contractor walk it. Do you also? Well, heck yeah, I do. Called my contractor. They had already walked it twice. And they were like, Liz, run.
Really?
There's foundation issues. You're about to sign yourself up for a nightmare. I literally texted the wholesaler and I'm like, thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
Have a great day. I mean, small things like that. I was being a little ballsy.
Yeah.
And decided to make an offer. And it probably still would have been relatively fine. But very quickly was able to say, nope, move on.
Yeah.
And again, I wouldn't say I had a little bit of the fever that morning and seeing the property and seeing the numbers and working the angle. But when it came down to it, red flag came up and I bolted. You got to do it.
You got to do it. You got to bolt. Bolt when Bolton's good. Michael Bolton.
That's Adam Messmer for you. See you on the next one.